Now we're going to go to project number 2 for the day. I had a friend bring me this, and he thankfully he didn't do what a lot of my friends do, which means take it all apart and couldn't get it back together again. But he did bring me this, and he said that fell out. So we knew that was at least one thing that I would need to get. So what we're looking at is an old Remington Model 12, and this one is a gallery special. You've heard about them all your life. They shoot 22 shorts, and they were very popular in shooting galleries, in fairs. And yes, that's right. They had shooting galleries even in New York City when they had Coney Island there. Real guns, they shot real ammo. And, you know, they'd move the sights one way for one gun, and then you'd shoot it empty, and they'd have you pick up another gun, and they'd have the sights just the opposite for that. So by the time you'd learn how all of them on the table shoot, you done spent, you know, $4 and you won a $2 prize. So we're gonna work on it today. We're gonna get it apart. I'll tilt the camera down and let you see how this whole thing comes apart. I don't think it's really gonna be a big deal. What I don't know is what besides this is broke or missing. So we're gonna have to get in there and see what all it entails. And remove the tubular magazine. I've already done that. There it is. It is empty. I've checked it. And I don't want to hear that ignorant stuff where more people die of unloaded guns. Unless you're using it as a blunt instrument, that's impossible. What that really meant was the person had a loaded gun and didn't bother to check it twice, 2, 3, 4 times, and then did something with it that you wouldn't do with a loaded gun. And that's where the problem comes in. So we're going to move this back to here. We're going to push this little detent, which will allow us to get the tube back just a little bit. And believe it or not, there's a little hole in the top of the action. And if you pull that forward, that will let the bolt slide right out of there. Now, I haven't cleaned this up. This thing is pretty filthy. Look here. Here's the other half of that. All right, let's see how this works. There's a pin there that I'm going to guess retains. Let's see, we got one. Looks like we got 2 pins. One of them keeps the firing pin from sliding out. Now let me look. That's the firing pin end right there. So I did right, and I did okay. I already ordered a new firing pin. I also ordered, because they had it in stock, and for these old guns, man, you know, you better get it when you can. I ordered a new firing pin spring and a firing pin spring guide for the Model 12. So hopefully that's all we're going to need to get this thing. He said it was extracting and ejecting real good right there. I can see the extractor, and the extractor looks good, and the spring feels like it's got plenty of oomph in it. So we're going to hopefully we're going to leave that alone. Let me see how it holds in there. Okay, I see how it holds in there, kind of like an old Remington 870, it appears. You would put pressure right there to take that out. Okay, so there's some consistency. First thing I'm going to do is put down some paper towels so my wife doesn't kill me because I'm over here on the tablecloth. Of course, she said she's about ready to get new tablecloths anyway. So, but I'm going to spray some stuff to get this good and clean. I'm going to clean this. I asked him when the last time it had a cleaning rod and a brush down the bore, and he said probably when it left the factory. So that was probably, in the teens somewhere, 1919. I don't mean 2019. So we're gonna clean this up and do things as we just take it one step at a time. Once I get it kind of clean, we'll go ahead and start dismantling this bolt. And y'all, I'm using this super slick stuff. Super slick stuff. It does a pretty good job at cleaning this crap off here. And it does a pretty good job at lubrication. And it dries so that there's no visible oily look, but it really makes parts slick. And yes, I use it on my guns in the wintertime. Other than a little bit of white grease on that Militech grease on the bolt lugs, because I do put a little bit on there, and I put a little bit on the bolt carrier where the rails touch the inside of the receiver. And everything else is super slick stuff. Now, obviously in the summer, I lube things a little heavy, but not wet. I don't run my ARs like a bunch of guys do. Oh, you got to run it wet. You got to run it. I've never had to run it wet. And granted, I'm not going out, at least anymore, at this period in my life. I'm not going out and shooting 300 or 400 rounds in a day, and I keep my guns clean and I take care of them. And if you do that, you don't have to run an AR sloppy wet. I'm going to tell you what, if you were left-handed, like I am, you would know why you don't want to run it with AR sloppy wet. Because the first pull of the trigger, all that crap you got in there blows right out in a left-hander's face. So, all right, at least now I can see the tops of the pins. Do you see those? Now I do have a punch, I think I do, that will fit those. I think it's a 1/16. And because I do believe that both of them are going to have to come out. And we'll see if there's any remnants of a firing pin spring in there, which I'm gonna really guess that would be a no, because you don't have to be a gunsmith to replace a drop-in part in a gun. Where things get iffy is if it's not drop-in. If you get a part and it has to be fitted, a lot of parts in guns, we'll look at this as a firing pin, but there may be some other function that this firing pin serves along this edge right here, and that's got to be checked too. It may work as a firing pin, but it may not. There may be some type of safety that slips in. Now, I happen to believe there's not in this, but there may be some kind of safety that slips in here that won't let this firing pin move until the trigger's pulled all the way, or something like that. And all those things have to be fitted to ensure. If that's the case, you need a sure enough gunsmith, okay? Now, we get to the point where we get this out and we see it's just a drop-in kind of deal, and all the measurements and everything match as good as this did. We're just going to drop the part in and let her fly, and see how it works. So my good friend Brian actually gave me a rest that you can sit on the table, and you can drive these punches out, and of course it won't scar your table up, and it catches the pin when you knock it out. But of course I don't have it here. That would be too fortunate. The wife would generally appreciate if you didn't drive holes in the top of her table. So, still not sure which way we need to drive this. Some holes are directional, so we're going to try it the other way. Oop. Just to see. Let me try on the hole in the middle. Didn't move an inch. Not a fraction of an inch. And I think it bent my punch. Wow. Those dudes have definitely been there for a long time. That punch must be one of them Harbor Freight punches. See if we got it moving at all. Not a bit. Look at that. High quality. Made in China. You mean an American-made drift pin is tougher than a made in China punch? You better believe it, baby. Especially one made in the last century. We knew how to make stuff then. Look at here. There went my punch. I was hoping for a second that was the pin, but no such luck. It was my punch. Now, maybe since I've lost the flexible punch tip, I can actually get one of these started, you think? Not that one for sure, the way it sets up in there. Here. No, not at all. Didn't move. Alright, gentlemen, so 2 punches later. This one actually was able to come out going up. The other one was able to come out going down. Insanity. And you see, that one goes in on a little bit of an angle. Would have been nice to know that before I started trying to drive them. Of course, it would have worked out better if I'd have had my block. It's harder. This wood actually absorbed some of the blow, so that probably made it a little tougher to come out. So what I'm looking at is I think this thing is actually missing a firing pin spring and a firing pin spring guide, according to the schematics that I found at, of course, Numerich Arms. And I believe the way this works, and boy, I don't know how we're going to pull this off, but I believe the way it works is this spring and spring guide, firing pin spring guide go in there. It's pulled out of the way, and that hammer is pushed down. Now, how in the world we're going to pull that off, I have no clue. Let me change it to inches. Nobody reads it millimeter crap. Okay, we've got 0.0675. Yep. 0.0765. So, got a little bit more to go, but you can see I've taken some metal off there. Now, what I have discovered is that I'm going to have to take down the whole thing. The it looks as if that's what they did too. They took down the whole back side of the, and to get it to fit in this mark. So what we're going to assume is they hand forged this baby, and well, they might have machine forged it, but you get my drift. They and then the way they take the critical distances off is, of course, the firing pin length of here to length of here. That may need filing in, and the thickness so that it'll fit in that slot. So that's all we're doing. We're going down, and I'm going to show you when I get done taking it down. I'm going to show you how I did it. So I'll show you how I'm doing this. I've got an 80 grit tip on my vibrating sander. Say, well, how do you know it's working? I know it's working because it's getting thinner and it's getting hot. Okay, so, okay, now we're getting a critical measurement. You see, I got the piece, the broken piece laid up here. And the critical measurement is from the end of the firing pin where it contacts the cartridge to the hammer. You obviously don't want that too long. Getting 1.871. Let's take our new part, and we're going to measure the same distance and hope it's similar. 1.884. Okay, I already see what I think is causing some of that because this isn't filed in. On this part, it's a very sharp, distinct corner. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe if I zoom in. And on this part, it's kind of rounded. So I think I'll get a file and file that in and get the correct length. I think the part where the hammer hits is pretty much, I mean, I can see machining marks on the back of that. So evidently this front edge is what they take the, yeah, it is, because right there's the original length of the part. And you can see, if I line them up together, you can see that they're both the same length. It's just that this notch needs to be taken back a little bit. So I'm going to do that with a file. All right, so we're going to bring you back up here. We're going to measure that spot. 18171.5. Okay, so we got the new part matching exactly the old part. All the critical tolerances have been brought down to where they seem to work really well in this bolt. And you know, you want slickness. You want to slide easy back and forth with no catching. And we got that. We got that in spades. And looks like it's ready to go back together. Now, the big hard part is going to be holding this retainer back and keeping the firing pin spring all the way to the rear until I get this pin driven in. And I am not sure how we're going to pull that off. I have some ideas. This may be one of those deals where you need 3 hands. So I may wait to get some help. But here's what I'm thinking. And if it works, I'm a genius. If it doesn't, hey, it was worth a try. So I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to find some kind of very thin film that I can put through here and keep this in the rearward position. Y'all with me? And then what I'm going to do is put it in here, drive the pin in and get it started to where it's blocking the firing pin spring retainer, or guide is what they call it. And once I get the pin started all the way through, then I'm going to pull that thin film out of this slot right here and let this release. And hopefully I'll be able to get it out without it breaking. I've got a little bit of tolerance in there, just like the old part, up and down. And I'm not so sure that in what they did. Okay, so here's what we got. I have a very thin piece of vinyl. It's pretty stout. It's like from a pencil bag. I cut it. Oh. See, there goes the danger. Of trusting this when it's not in the receiver. I shouldn't do that. I'm going to lose it. So what I'm going to try to do, and I'll explain this to you. Let me take the piece of vinyl out. I'm going to put this in there. I'm going to retract it, and I'm going to put this little piece of vinyl through there. And I probably need to cut one a little wider so I can retract it and hold it. Then when I slide this in there, I need to drive the pin down through there and then ease the vinyl out, which will let the spring snap back against the back of the pin. Y'all, this is tedious. And the big danger is that this slips loose and flies in there when I've got the pin half nailed in. Now I've got the spring and spring guide, and I gotta somehow back the pin out. I can't drive out from the other side because the spring and spring guide will be in the way. So very tedious stuff. I'm gonna let this roll, and I'll either pull it off or I won't. So you can't stop halfway to see if it's working. All right, so I've still got spring tension, I believe. Come on now. Oh no. Okay, right there. Good. Good. Let's see if I can come up with a way that I can drive that straight down. Yeah, you see what's happened? Something has seized up, so that I've probably bent the firing pin spring or the guide rod. We're going to loosen it. Oh, no, wait. Okay, there we go. Ha. Working. Whew. Little bit of attack, because I tell you, when you order parts for these old guns, you never know. You never know if you're going to be able to get any more. Because Numerich Arms buys old guns and they part them out. So, you know, if just because I ordered this firing pin spring today, if I tore it up and put a big kink in the spring, I could go to order it today and they won't have any in stock, and they might have not any in stock for the next 3 years, So that's good news. That's awesome. And I'm going to guess it was just a little bit, that spring was just, when I pulled that vinyl out of there, it was a little cocked. Just a little tap. She's rolling in there. So that's great. I still don't know about this pin, man. I ain't never seen one more cantankerous in my life than that little one right there. Jamie, what are you doing? Well, I'm using my redneck lathe to turn down another punch, okay? You say, are you kidding? No, I'm not kidding. I want to get this done today. And so we got to turn down another punch on our redneck lathe. All right, we're going to clean this gun and put it all back together. And I think we'll be ready to go. Yeah, I had to take that pin back out. I had to knock had to do the little trick again with the little piece of plastic to hold that spring guide back while I drove that pin back in after reshaping that inlet there. So I think we're ready to go. I'm going to clean the rifle. I'm going to put it all back together. And I think we've got this one. Hopefully. The biggest problem is going to be finding some 22 shorts to run through it. I think I got some at home, but I'm not sure. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to clean this receiver out a little with some of this super slick stuff. Oh, got it turned the wrong way. Look at the crap running out of there. All right, so I'll spray a little down the muzzle. Tell you what, let's do. Let's put a 22 caliber bore brush on there. I think that's what that is. Get out of there. I tell you, this gun, if it ain't one thing, it's another. There we go. I think I got the handle for this thing. This, I don't know how much pumpkin this cleaning kit is. I hope it's decent enough. I gave them away for Christmas last year, so got a good deal. You know how that is. Got that turned around backwards again. It's because the edge is broke off and it's hard to tell by feel. Wow, that was pretty easy, dragging that through. Not like what I thought it'd be. Let's see if we can get her back through there. Probably, yeah, probably got to do it like this, because that's so deep in that receiver. And I'll take this off and screw it on the other end. Yeah, that's much easier than fighting it. I don't even think I'll need the handle. It's pulling through pretty easy. I'm impressed. I thought that thing would be absolutely filthy. Really? Boy. I'm really impressed. I figured this board would be filthy. And you know what? It's not. It actually doesn't look bad at all. I'm pleasantly surprised. You know, a lot of these old guns in the turn of the century were they were still using. A lot of people were still using black powder cartridges and corrosive priming. So, you know, this gun was actually taken pretty good care of. Looks like. That's good. That's what we like. So, all right. So I'm just gonna wipe some of the excess crap off there. And I'm guessing this is the bolt release. Looks great. All right. A little excess oil in there. Actually not oil. Super slick stuff. So, let's see if the safety works. Safety works. And I hate to dry fire it because, y'all, that's probably what broke this old firing pin, was just years of people dry firing it and, you know, unloading it and then uncocking it. And I think if it's like a lot of other ones, you can probably bring that bolt release back a little bit and ease that hammer, and ease that hammer forward, and it keeps it from, see, rather than just once you unload it, hit this bolt release and drag it back and then pull the trigger. That'll release the hammer and you can ease it up. Keeps you from having to dry fire these old things, because they, years and years of dry firing will take its toll. And sometimes it doesn't take years. You know, a lot of old rim fires, the firing pin wasn't measured to have a prefigured stopping point. It just slammed as hard as it could. I'm going to try to keep track of the notch he's got this on and clean there under the sight. But so they just hit as hard as they could hit, and you know, it didn't matter, because when you had it loaded, it'd be a brass shell casing there that you're hitting on. So, you know, that wasn't a very hard lick, but they think he had it down one more notch. I think that one's ready to go.